his situation seemed hopeless. Looking down, his lungs began to burn again. He saw the creature coming up at him, fast. In the darkness of the deeper water, he saw the swishing back and forth of its body, which efficiently powered and propelled the creature toward him. Then it rotated 180 degrees so that the hooked triangle dorsals lined up with Mykal. The 5 fins were on the length of the one serpent. Each fin was the size of both of his hands put together. The tail swished, propelling the body of the beast. Yes, it meant to flay him, slice him up into people fillets and steaks. As the first dorsal cut into his thigh, Mykal kicked out with his left leg, trying to move out of the way. Pushing off of the massive creature, he once again breached the surface, filling his lungs with air, and looked for land. Seeing the sand of the beach, he immediately raced toward the shore, his one chance at surviving this horror. He kicked his legs, his arms pinwheeled through the water, and he turned his head from side to side occasionally to take in breaths. Ahead were groups of more fins above the water, at least 20. He was swimming directly toward them, and worse, they were headed towards him. The fins were not just from one creature. There were maybe 5 different monsters in the sea. His blood had attracted more beasts. These would have no arrows impeding their maws. Nightmare images flooded his mind, keeping him from focusing his little energy left on swimming. Each kick, each stroke brought him closer to the beach as he futilely angled away from the creatures ahead. He was tired, injured and weak, the salt water fiercely stinging the deep lacerations. He screamed as he swam, screamed from the pain, screamed hoping someone heard, screamed because it was the only thing he could still do other than swim for his life. There were too many of them. They were too fast. He would never make it. He felt the rise of a big wave pick him up. The beach suddenly looked obtainable. Survival seemed suddenly possible. The wave white-capped at one end as it rolled faster and faster toward shore. He flattened his body out like a board. It was all he could think to do. He pictured himself as driftwood and hoped he'd ride the top to safety. He did not want the wave to crash over him, force him under, pin him. If that happened, the beasts, now somewhat off to his right and behind him, would have him, and tear at his flesh with their rows and rows of teeth. Lying on the wave, he floated on top of the water and raced toward shore. As fast as those creatures were, he felt like a seagull flying through the air, like a ship sailing 100 knots across the sea. The last thing he remembered, just before the wave broke and rolled, was the barely heard snapping of teeth just behind his feet and legs, and then everything went black.